So what we have here is an active pile.
At first glance, this just looks like a pile of dirt, but as you look closer, you can start to see the scraps.
Yeah, absolutely. When you approach the pile, you can begin to identify the raw feedstocks, and that just means the organics, the raw organics that you use to build your compost.
Okay.
And there are a couple other key things that you need to compost successfully. One of the things would be water, and that can come in the form of snow or in rain.
So what kind of consistency should the pile have?
You want the material to feel like a wrung out sponge, and another key component is aerating the pile. And with larger piles, you can use a front end loader, but with smaller piles like this, you can actually just use a shovel or a rake, and you basically just want to aerate it, maybe once a week at the least, something like that. And that'll ensure that adequate oxygen is getting into the pile, and it also moves the microbial activity throughout the pile thoroughly. So we got 3 piles that are in different stages of decomposition, such as the one that I showed you, which is the active pile. And then this one here, this is the finished compost. This is completely stable, which means it's not gonna decompose anymore. And clearly there's still some debris in here, but as soon as you screen that out, you're gonna be left with a really nice soil amendment.
But not everyone has the space or the need for this volume of compost.
Right.
There are small space solutions.
Absolutely. So what we have here are some common commercially available composting systems. You see these all the time in backyards in the suburbs.
Okay.
And this is really your most basic system. What it is a plastic box essentially with these doors that open up top. And this is where you would insert your feedstocks, which would be your kitchen scraps, your nitrogen material.
Okay.
You do want to be sure, however, that you add an ample amount of carbon in order to compost properly.
So where do you get your carbon from?
So carbon comes in the form of dried up leaves, cardboard, newspaper, that sort of thing.
Okay.
And you want to be sure that you do it at a ratio of 3 to 1. So 3 parts carbon to 1 part nitrogen. It is by far the biggest mistake that home composters make, is not adding enough carbon to their system.
Okay.
And then once you have that recipe in there, you want to get active with it. You can use, I like to use a metal pole or a pipe. I find it easier than using a shovel. It's just easier to access. And what you do, you would stick that in there and you would just make wide circles in it, and that would aerate the material.
Okay. I notice all these holes all along the side of the compost bin. That's to let oxygen in, correct?
That's a good point. Yep, the holes allow oxygen and moisture into the compost.
Okay. And it has this nifty little trap door here, so you could access the finished compost, right?
Precisely, yep, that's what that's for. And also you can see there's no real bottom to it.
Oh, right.
So it gives vermin a real opportunity to get inside and to burrow in there.
And we really don't want to invite them.
Not the best thing, nope. Now this is a great solution and more vermin proof. This is a tumbler. So what you do is you open this door here, put your material inside.
The same 3 to 1 ratio.
That's right, 3 parts carbon and 1 part nitrogen. You close it up, make sure it's tight and secure. You undo this side lock here and then you start turning.
That seems pretty handy to me.
It's a great solution for breaking down material. One of the drawbacks though is that people tend to overfill it, and then when you do turn it, it sort of makes the material turn into one big giant glob. So you have to be careful of that. Do not overstuff these.
What about this one?
So this is designed to sort of blend in with your trash and your recycling just on the side of your house, for instance.
Okay.
You open the door and you put your organics right on top of the screen here. And then after 3 or 4 months, let's say, when you're all ready to harvest that compost, you would turn this crank, and that forces the material to go down to the bottom of the container.
And this is where you get your finished compost.
Yep. Now for my money, I would just go with a standard 32-gallon trash can that you could get at any home center. These things are durable, they're inexpensive, $15, $20, something like that. And all you're gonna wanna do is sort of emulate the best attributes of these different devices into this one.
Okay.
I'm gonna start by drilling some holes. By using a 5/16 drill bit, I'm ensuring that the material will receive adequate moisture and oxygen, but it won't pose any issues in terms of vermin. And there you have it, a totally homemade composting bin. Now ideally you'd have 3 or 4 of these so you could sort of monitor the decomposition process.
Like we saw down below with the other piles.
Exactly, yep.
Now these all assume that you have a yard, but what if you live in the city and services like yours are not offered? What else can we do?
Well, in that case I would recommend vermicomposting, and I'll show you what that's all about.
All right.
So this is what you would just call a worm bin.
Another homemade creation.
Absolutely, yep. I just bought this tote at a home center. Made some holes, some large holes to give the worms plenty of oxygen. Now let's take a look inside. So what you have in here are a special kind of worm that are uniquely designed for consuming organic material. They're called red wigglers. Easy for me to say. Yep. And they just eat organics. They'll eat up to their body weight a day.
It doesn't even smell.
Right, exactly. And that's when you know you're doing it right too. There should be no smell if you're doing it correctly. And by correctly, that basically just means that you're not adding too much food at any given time, and you're also not starving them.
Okay.
And you'll know that they're unhappy. They'll start to climb the sides of the bin. They'll try to escape essentially. They're looking for food, they're looking for moisture. Some things that you want to keep in mind, you don't want to put too much, they don't like light, so you don't want to have too much light on them. So they're great for putting underneath your sink or something like that.
So someone in the city could just put them under their sink.
Yep,
in a
absolutely.
small space.
Mm-hmm. Yep, basements are great for them too.
Okay, so how do you get the finished compost?
In this setup, I drilled some holes on the bottom here. You can push that loose material down below and it'll catch in this basin.
So this acts like a sifter.
No, exactly, yep.
Well, thank you. It seems like there is a solution for every homeowner.
I think there is.